Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
I just
All right.
started the recording, so we'll get a good answer on this too.
No, can you repeat what you said? You found that what neuronal stem cells
Yeah,
act as memory cells?
in the journal Nature, 15th of March, there's a paper on the generation of new neurons in the hippocampus, and the nature of the mother cells that produce mother stem cells, and then there are other cells that are with us through life, and do not decrease. Oh, they're there, but and they can be released. And they were saying that in rodents, not so much. That their stem cells do diminish and don't release as easily. Something to that effect. I have to read the paper.
Yeah, well, if you send me the link, I'll try to read the article. But
yeah,
so you're saying
I'll try to do that.
All right. There's a diminishing activity of stem cells with aging
until they get released.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to read the article. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered whether you'd maybe seen it already, but I thought I'd bring it up and I'll send it to you.
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah. No, today though I discovered another interesting thing, and that is regarding stem cells. Although, again, I stress the fact that the product itself, Climax, is not just stem cells. It's got a lot of other activities at the neurological level, at the immune system level, as anti-inflammatory, anti-lipoperoxidation. So there's a lot of activities that refer to the two extracts. But in terms of stem cells today, I found something that was also interesting, and that is the fact that, I probably mentioned before the fact that one of the actions through which phycocyanins manage to release stem cells, it's because they activate an enzymatic cascade that leads to the production of metalloprotease, which breaks down the niches in which stem cells are kept, right, in the bone marrow or in the thymus and so forth. Now, what is interesting is that I deepened a little bit the study of that niche, and I actually found that the niche itself is composed mostly of hyaluronic acid, high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and that this hyaluronic acid actually is produced by the body by fibroblasts. And since there's actually other studies showing, as I mentioned, the fact that phycocyanins actually stimulate fibroblasts, it seems that there is another action. That is, phycocyanins not only help the release of stem cells, but they actually help the reproduction and maturation of stem cells. Because what happened is that hyaluronic acid seems to have produced by the body endogenously through fibroblasts, seems to have a double action on stem cells. On the one hand, it stimulates the proliferation of stem cells in the bone marrow, and by linking to this CD44, this cluster of differentiation CD44, that when it meets hyaluronic acid, it actually starts the process of proliferation of stem cells. And then also because it's going to compose and to strengthen the niche, so that the niche actually becomes like a breeding chamber for stem cells to proliferate and mature and grow. So it seems to have like a much more complex activity, which is not just the release, but also through fibroblast and hyaluronic acid production, both the proliferation and the maturation of stem cells. So it's a much wider type of action that I thought before. So that's a novel thing that I learned in the last couple of days. So
would supplementation with HLA have an effect on that? Because a lot of people do supplement with HLA.
You mean hyaluronic acid?
Yeah.
Actually, I do have a product which is it's called hyaluron, and that is a high molecular weight hyaluronic acid. I don't know. It depends on how it's absorbed. One of the big problems is that actually there's a wrong perception on hyaluronic acid. Most people believe that the best version of hyaluronic acid is low molecular weight because it's supposed to, penetrate more easily the various barriers. Actually, this is wrong because low molecular weight hyaluronic acid not only is completely inactive in the process I mentioned, but is also inflammatory as opposed to anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So would it help? I don't know. Clearly, let's say that in terms of stem cell, I don't know. Personally, I work with this high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, so maybe it could help too. But I would think that the hyaluronic acid produced endogenously, of course, is much more effective than whatever you can put from the outside. Yeah. Because also, putting from the outside, it has to pass the various barriers. Right. It has to resist the action of the enzymes like hyaluronidase and so forth. So, so it's another path that I discovered recently, and I think it explains why Climax can be so powerful in not only the release and the migration, but also in the production of proliferation and maturation of stem cells. So,
and that's the case as well with transdermal. I think you were mentioning before that the higher molecular weight or the larger molecule that you push in transdermally is more effective than the the small molecule is what they're putting in a lot of cosmetics.
Right, exactly. In fact, the product that we will use with the transdermal device when it will be introduced mixes both Afamax, so the phycocyanin, and the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, and that could actually be one of the explanation of these great results that we get very fast with the transdermal application. Though I have to say that recently, I don't know if you've seen some of the testimonials that were brought on Facebook. The results on the skin have been so amazing even with just Climax in a couple months that some people said, oh, maybe we don't need, transdermal if these are the effects. But actually, with the transdermal, you get it much faster. That's the difference. But it seems to be very effective also through taking just Climax, regularly. So
I had my hair cut yesterday, and I'm sure that my hair has become thicker, the hairs themselves. And the person that cuts my hair said yes. And then I thought, I don't know the chemistry of it, but I think, isn't there a connection with dehydroxytestosterone? And there's also, and hair thinning. And there's, of course, also the effect on the male hormones that Climax has. So I was wondering if there's a relationship there. My wife may be upset.
I haven't thought about that, but it's a nice, interesting suggestion. Yeah, because of course, one of the action of clamine and phenylethylamine is, is very powerful dopaminergic, and dopamine, of course, is related to the testosterone, cascade and production. So that could be another interesting way of explaining why we have so many reports on growing hair and regrowing hair.
And I think the dehydroxytestosterone is an oxidative breakdown product of testosterone, which causes hair. And so if you're quenching the free radicals, that's another way that's affecting it, I guess.
Yeah. I got a question as well. Years ago, when I was studying intently and getting my training, we talked about the sodium-potassium pump of getting nutrients into the cell and waste out. So that has to be correct. With the broad range of spectrum of nutrients in the Climax, is that even probably more effective in getting the product to be more available, bioavailable to the body to get a more complete usage of the nutrients that are in there?
I'm not sure I understood the question, sorry.
Okay, no, sodium and potassium have to be in the right balance in the body to get nutrients into the cell, through the cell, and particularly in the small intestine through the gut barrier, and which brings up a whole other thing, because my whole family history has been Crohn's disease and celiac disease. My mother and my father both.
Right.
So that was always a big concern to me, and being able to get things through that gut brain barrier. We need to have the right nutrients to do that. And I think because it's such a full spectrum product, it seems like it's going to be more effective of getting the value into the body.
Yeah, that's again another cat that I haven't thought about. That could be certainly what I found is that generally, anytime you associate any type of product with the algae, there seems to become much more bioavailable. And that probably due to the fact that, all the cofactors that the algae supplies to any substance, any molecule, and that makes it more. For instance, I found that, again, even the fact that, for instance, we're talking about the high molecular weight hyaluronic acid and the skin. It's true that we do, make it cross the skin through the transdermal. But I also have to say that mixing Affamax or the algae with hyaluronic acid in a cosmetic product, it still goes in very well. So it's like the algae or something in the algae or the phycocyanin or whatever seems to play a role of, carrier through barriers somehow. Because again, you put on this cosmetic where there is a quantity of high molecular weight hyaluronic acid and it's sucked in like, very, very quickly. So yes, I agree. I don't know if it's going through this, sodium potassium pump. That I have no data on that, but certainly on many of the molecules present and even the nutrients, they're much better absorbed because of the wide range of cofactors present. So like you have, for the bones you have vitamin K, but you also have fluorine. You also have boron. All molecules or nutrients that work synergistically to increase the absorption of calcium, for instance, which also is present a little bit in the algae. Actually, the calcium in the algae, in terms of absolute quantities, it's probably the highest that there is. It's about 150% compared to dairy products. The calcium in the algae. Problem is, of course, you don't eat 100 grams of algae. So you're not going to get a lot of calcium. But, so in relative terms, there's only a small quantity, maybe 40, 50 milligrams, which is still useful. But, of course, but in absolute terms, is actually in percentage-wise, is very high content of calcium as well. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I don't know if that answers your question up to a point. But, yeah,
it did. I want to say, in conjunction with what Ken said about the hair, my wife was sitting in the chair last night, and she was kind of feeling her hair, and she says, my hair feels thicker and heavier up here, and I still got a little spot here. It's a little bit thin, but it's heavier, and mine is as well. So I think it's really doing something powerful with the hair, and we've seen the pictures on Facebook as well. So it's wonderful.
I have to confess that I've taken algae for 25 years. I've taken the two extracts separately for a long time, but since I started taking Climax, where the two extracts are together, and so maybe there's a more powerful action on stem cells, I actually regrew hair in my head, in the spot where there was. So I'm actually pretty amazed by the result of Climax myself,
Yeah.
The funny thing for me was that getting my haircut yesterday, she said, "Well, what are you taking? Are you taking a vitamin? Why is this happening?" And I said, "Well, it's a nutritional product that's like a Swiss Army knife, and I don't know what part of it is fixing my hair." And I said, and I didn't take it for that reason anyway. I took it for other reasons. And she said, "Well, my son he's kind of ADHD and on the autistic spectrum. And would that be of use?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that's mainly the kind of thing that it's for." And so suddenly she wants a business card and all of that stuff. So it's funny how that compounds.
Yeah, I've got a question too that came up in my mind this morning about the harvesting of the product itself from Klamath Lake. Obviously it's only done in probably a pretty brief period of time throughout the year. Are there variations from year to year, like in any crop, that we would see differences, or how does that affect our end product in Climax? with a harvestation of it.
Yeah,
So
well, let's say that. No, let's say that yeah, there is a variation. There, it all depends on nature since it's a wild product. So there've been actually a couple years in the past. Actually, there's been like 2-3 years where in the last 5 years that was very bad in terms of harvesting. But that's again, the responsibility of government. It's not responsibility of nature, because what happened is, the Environmental Protection Agency intervened to restore some kind of fish that was there 100 years ago. They broke down the dam that divided the small Agency Lake with the Klamath Lake. So all the water Agency Lake flooded Klamath Lake, and this must have, created like a big flow. Are you there? Yeah, a big imbalance. So that for 2-3 years, there was almost no algae. It was very difficult to have it. But having said that, now it's gone back to normal. I would say that there are, on average, about maybe 50, 60 days a year where you can harvest between June and November. And the old point is to be ready to harvest as much as you can in those days. But the production, the algae that blooms when there is a bloom of algae in the lake, you can harvest like 10, 20 tons of dry algae in one day.
There's someone on the call who needs to mute themselves. Is there it sounds like they're eating their cornflakes.
Yeah,
I think it's a person who just came in that has just a phone number and there's bottom of their.
yeah.
Can you mute them, David?
There we go.
250. Thank you.
Okay.
That's better.
Yeah. So as I said, the amazing vitality of this microalgae is that when it goes into a bloom, it quadruples every 15 minutes. So suddenly, from nothing, you get like a huge blanket of 10 centimeters that covers completely the lake. And if you're prepared, you have enough harvesting ability, you can harvest, as much as you want. In terms of quality, I don't think it matters much. Some days you can get some other stuff mixed with it, but it's usually filtered out pretty easily. All this care about microcysteines, it's bullshit, if I can say. In fact, I managed finally. It looks like I managed to get my article on the microcystine scam, because it's a scam. In a toxicology journal. It's been very difficult. Well, I don't know if any of you has read my paper on this, but otherwise I can explain to you very quickly, synthetically. But the microcystine limit for water was actually made by the World Health Organization panel in it was a fraud, essentially. What they did, they needed to get like as low as possible, so they manipulated the data in a way that was shameful. And my article actually showed and revealed that. So you can imagine how it could be accepted by the toxicological establishment. In fact, when I sent it to a journal, the first journal I sent it to, the director of this journal actually said that he sent it to 5 reviewers. And then 3 weeks later, he comes back to me and tells me, the reviewers have actually reported to me that, the article is not really up to publication for this journal, it's not up to the standards of this journal and so forth. And one of the reviewers happened to be a friend of mine because he's from the university where I work. He called me up half an hour later, even without me calling me, said, do you know anything about the fact that the director of this journal wrote to me saying that I don't have to do the review anymore because he's decided on his own? Just to show you how, yeah. Anyway, so finally now this other journal had to make a lot of modification, but it hopefully should come out soon. And also in this mythical for me booklet that I'm trying to publish, where there's all the studies on Chlamine and Afamax, I've also added a section on that summarizes this study and explain why microcystine is really like I mean, the studies showed that with climate algae you can take well, in a nutshell, first I show that they actually manipulated the data and they excluded all the studies that showed that up to 450 milligrams a day of microcystin would be safe, you know, and they excluded that, and they only chose this study where they used purified microcystin that doesn't exist in nature. They injected it in the mice, which again doesn't exist in nature, and in spite of that they couldn't get toxicity results, so they had to still manipulate the data.
So they put it into the bloodstream rather than the gut.
Yeah, what they did is, they took 3 studies. The first study showed that giving it dietarily, right, normally, as part of the algae, as part of the algae that produces it, right? So they took water, they put the whole algae with the microcystin in it. The 450 milligrams, the equivalent of 450 milligrams a day for a human being would be safe, right? Then the second study, they did it on pig. And again, even though it was kind of different and so forth, you still get like results like 20 milligrams a day in water is safe, right? So they did the third study and they said, well, if you keep going like this, we're not going anywhere. So let's take purified microcystins, which doesn't exist in nature. Actually, they didn't do it through injection, but they did it through gavage, which is the same thing. They pushed it down forcefully direct into the gut, bypassing all the digestion process. And in spite of that, at the level that would then create this 1 microgram per gram, the mice, all their liver enzyme had improved, right? So they say, oh, well, liver enzyme have improved, but let's look at the liver of the mice after they died, what happens. 30 mice, 28 perfect liver. 2, they say, there's a very slight lesion, very, very slight lesion, which they don't even define. So we cannot really say that this is a safe level. So let's go down to, it was 200, let's say. So we say, well, since the data are so minimal, you may want to test 150, right? No, they go down to 40, so that finally they can get the desired 1 microgram per gram. And out of that, they build a whole new industry. Because before microcystin wasn't a problem, after they say 1 microgram per gram, every single water processing plant has to buy the machinery to filter microcystins. Every laboratory in the world has to make up a microcystin lab where they buy the system to test microcystin, and the microcystin sample, which costs $10,000 a gram, right, and so forth. Having said that, which is a scam from the beginning, this cannot be applied to the algae for one simple reason. There's at least 20 studies that show microcystins are protein phosphatase inhibitors. They oxidize this enzyme. So they're oxidating agents. There's at least 20 studies that all antioxidant substances inhibit microcystin. From polysaccharide, carotenoids, vitamin C. So the algae has all of them, right? And the only study done on climate algae with the equivalent of 10 micrograms per gram for a human being, 6 months of administration to the mice, after 6 months, perfect health of all the mice, right? So my goal right now is, if I'm gonna be able to publish, as I hope, this preliminary study, the next step would be to repeat a study with a proper study done properly with dietary means and the whole algae with the high content of microcystins and so forth. So anyway, this briefly is what is the scam of microcystin. But unfortunately, it always comes up and always bring it up, the great danger of
on another subject, do I recall you saying that there was a study underway on Parkinson's?
No, there's a study that we've done on, and we've completed on dementia.
Yep. Okay.
It's a kind of a, I don't know exactly. I've been looking at the data, and I have to get a better look because what happened is that the patients selected were very, very extreme. Talking about patients that 3 of them died during the study, very advanced in age and very advanced in dementia. So what I saw at the beginning with clamine only, not with Clamax, which I think is more powerful, but with clamine, we saw that about half of these people actually improved. They regressed into the dementia. About half kind of did not worsen. They were stabilized. We're now looking with a statistician to see if the data are sufficient to get like a statistically significant result. But he said that he thinks that the results are positive, but I still don't know what it will be. But yeah, this is the current situation.
How is the acquisition of that other property on Klamath Lake?
Oh yeah, that's done actually. Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
So we have lots.
It's very good.
We all worry about that if our product doesn't come in time.
Yeah, no. We're very happy because we actually managed to get a leasing for 10 years of this cove, which actually allows to put the boats very close to the harvesting area, to the main harvesting area, and also it will make the transportation much faster, which will allow us to harvest much more algae. So we're very optimistic for the coming year. So, and also we're expanding. I heard some people, some of the competition saying, "Oh, they only have like one harvester and so forth." But actually, we're growing the harvesting capacity 5-fold for this harvesting season. So we're very optimistic, right?
Go ahead, Ken.
We found in the clinic, I had 4 people standing around our reception desk the other day trying to buy it. And somebody sitting in the waiting room was, "So what's all this excitement about?" And so I think it's catching.
Yeah. I have to say, I said it before, but I repeat it. The testimonial I'm seeing with Climax, I've seen many miracles over the years, but with this depth and speed, I'm quite amazed myself. I mean, I've seen, even that story about, the necrotizing fasciitis. I don't know if you've seen that, but that is absolutely amazing. There's a lady in the Philippines that has necrotizing fasciitis, which is, these flesh-eating bacteria that are already in the neck and were starting to get into the chest. Awful. She did 3 weeks of Climax. It's almost gone.
Wow.
Almost completely clear.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge, So things that are, and many other, apart from the, people recovering sight and hair and skin, which are all nice, but, apparently even on these, very, very serious diseases, there seems to be incredible results. So I'm very, very happy. Yeah.
My concussion patient was one of those people standing around the desk, and I think I posted something and you commented on it.
Right.
She had a concussion and was disabled for 8 months, 8 months disability, a lot of interventions with no response. And partway through her a few days into her first bottle of Climax, I got an email, which I posted. And then she was in buying her second bottle, and she said, "I can't believe it. I cannot believe how much better I feel. I can be in a crowd. I can drive without fear because I'm not absorbing all that's going on around me. I can hear music without being bothered." It's changed her life.
And actually,
for a practitioner, that's what's thrilling.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually talking from Malaysia right now, right? I'm in Malaysia. I'm meeting with Dr. Rajan here. It's almost midnight. But, it's fine for me because I have a 6 hours jet lag, so I don't sleep until 3 o'clock anyway. So, but last night we had a presentation, and he reported actually one case himself of a concussion that the person said, is much better. And I have another post of a lady saying, after 2-3 weeks, I'm, much better and so forth. So yeah, there seems this thing about erythropoietin, seems to be confirmed the animal study where it says, that animal study, to me, it's amazing because, to increase 500% erythropoietin, but what is even more amazing is to increase 300% the receptors of erythropoietin in 3 weeks. That means there's a change in the brain structure. It's not just function. Is the brain being reshaped, right? 300% more receptor for erythropoietin. And erythropoietin, it's what is used after a stroke to, by our body to repair the lesion and try to counteract multiple sclerosis and all the neurological lesions. So the fact that now we see these results even in human beings, it just proves that whatever was proven in the mice applies also to human beings. So that's very, very interesting. And I don't know if I told you, but I must have showed it in the presentation, but we've had, we're going to publish an article with this, the National Research Center in Italy. That's the top, governmental research institution in Italy. So this guy publish very high level, very highly reputed journals, and they're going to publish an article where they did tests on in vitro, but on human neurons and producing Alzheimer, and there was like when they did this inflammatory oxidative stress that produced a lot of beta amyloid, and actually adding clamine to it reduced the beta amyloid like about 70% production. But what was more amazing of that study that will be published is that the 30% beta amyloid that was still produced became non-toxic. It did not produce any damage to the neuron as opposed to the normal beta amyloid. So that is huge.
So you add that to the stimulation of new stem cell release, and you get a double effect.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's encouraging. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, we talk about the lesions on the skin that we saw in the pictures in Facebook and how dramatic that was. And it's really nice to have nice looking skin as we age in particular. But if it's doing that on the outside, I know, and we all know, that it's also doing that on the inside. It's doing that for the person with MS, with the myelin sheath being ripped apart and ripped off. That's going to be remyelinated. So I just think there's so much potential for this, and I hope and pray we have this product forever, and there's not going to be any hiccups at all. And it's just a great product. And boy, I just say thank you.
Yeah, me too. We're all addicted to it now. I'm thinking we're all the blue tongue.
I have my glass here, so
we are the blue tongue cult.
Yes,
exactly. The blue tongue cult. That's fine. And as I say, it's very good for the tongue anyway. So being blue. So
one of the things that came up the other day on Facebook, and it kind of interested me because we're hearing a lot about the CBD oil and your analysis on that. If you could just briefly go into that a little bit, or take as much time. We got plenty of time here, so.
No, I actually have added a page to my book, which I'm hoping to be able to publish soon. Because I looked at some of the studies because there's a lot of frenzy about cannabinoid and cancer, so I just wanted to look at some of the studies that they did similar to what we did with alpha-phycocyanin, right, with the Alpha-Max extract, and so I found this study which is supposed to be with one of the most powerful cannabinoid in cancer, and essentially what I saw is that it was a similar model on the one we used in terms of inhibition of cancer cell proliferation. And when you look at the graphic, which as I said, I posted, I put in the page, so when the book will be available, you can see it. Essentially at the same concentration of 100 nanomolar, the cannabinoid produces a 70% inhibition of cancer cell proliferation, whereas alpha-ficocyanin produces about a 95% inhibition. Now, that is important because the last ranks of inhibition are always the most difficult. We find a lot of products that, inhibit 50%, maybe 60% or whatever, but very, very few products, if any, that actually reach the almost 100% level with low dosage, right? So that difference of 20, 25%, 70 to 90, 95 was already very important. What is interesting is that for cannabinoid, this special cannabinoid, to reach the same level of alpha-ficocyanin, they have to increase the dosage 1,000 times. They have to move from nanomolar to micromolar or millimolar, I don't even remember, but like 1,000 times more to reach the same. So whatever that means, I mean, it's an in vitro study, whatever you want, but, in general, you could say that alpha-PC seems to be about 1,000 times more powerful than cannabinoid, because to reach the same result, they have to use a 1,000 times more concentrated quantity of the cannabinoid. So.
Is the cannabinoid as broad spectrum nutrient as what we have with the Clamex ingredients?
No, that was like, those were actually the molecules. In both cases were the purified molecules, okay. Yeah. Both the purified cannabinoid and the purified alpha-ficocyanin.
Okay.
And then we have the effect on reducing metastasis. So
yeah,
that's a secondary effect, is it?
That's another level because that works through the inhibition of this enzyme, which is the UDP glucose dehydrogenase. But that was like a kind of an unexpected bonus, because I might have explained that the reason why we tested for UDP glucose dehydrogenase is because I have another patent, which I've deposited these days at the national level, for the use of Afamax to enhance and of course increase, but also enhance the absorption of curcumin. And we found that, when we tested curcumin by itself and curcumin with Afamax, there was an increase up to 4,000% in the blood. But what is more interesting, because up to that, that's not even the most interesting part, because you find a lot of other substances that on paper, they even increase the absorption even more, maybe 100 times, 185 times. But what I did recently, I went to look at all these other studies where they say, it increases 100 times and 200 times and whatever. But what they show is that there is a big increase in the blood, but then it stays in the blood for like 24 hours, slowly being released from the blood into excretion, because that's the time it takes more or less to be excreted into urines, right? So there is no proof in those things that actually from the blood it gets into tissue. Yeah. Because what's the point of getting a substance in the blood if then it doesn't go into tissue? It's zero, right? It doesn't do anything. What is interesting about these cases that we did by putting together curcumin and Afamax is that not only there was this spike, very high spike in the increase in the blood, but very quickly, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour at the most, went out of the blood. So that means that it could only go to tissue, because in 1 hour or 15 minutes, half an hour, it cannot be excreted from the body. So if it leaves the blood, it must go into tissue. Now, my next step will be to go to, to do some animal pharmacokinetic study to actually show that it's in the blood, but that's what it is. So anyway, so that was the main goal, and the reason is because UDP glucose dehydrogenase is the enzyme that breaks down curcumin.
Well, it would seem then that across the board that Afamax may open up cell wall gates and assist the transport of other molecules into the cells.
Yeah, it looks like it. Like we have, for instance, another great product that we make and increases hugely the absorption is coenzyme Q10 mixed with Afamax. Oh. And we have amazing results. Like we have cardiologists in Italy that swear by this coenzyme Q10 because people take it and have great results, you know, and coenzyme Q10 is one other product that has absorption problems. So, yeah.
Would it be effective for instance, patients on statin drugs to take CoQ10 along with their Climax?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because as I said, we do have one, you know, we call it NutriQ10. It's coenzyme Q10 mixed with Afamax, and it's very, very effective and very, very absorbed much, much better than ordinary Q10. So,
good.
Yeah.
It definitely help everybody that's dealing with chemotherapy drugs as well, because that'll really mess up the heart.
Yeah, and as I said, I don't know if we have already some testimonials. I don't think so with Climax. I haven't seen it, but I have 20 years experience using Afamax-based products on chemotherapy, and it's mind-boggling because, you know, people have no nausea, no fatigue, they don't lose one single hair, and they go through chemotherapy like drinking a glass of water, and which is great, but sometimes, as I mentioned, sometimes you have to be careful because what happened to me in a few cases, people got so much better, even with the cancer, and you don't know if it's chemotherapy or was actually Afamax, but in any case, whatever it was, the cancer regressed very significantly. But when the oncologist saw that the person was taking the chemotherapy so well, they said, oh, well, you know, there's a little bit of a leftover. Let's try this new chemotherapy, which is much more powerful than the previous one, you know. And they finally managed to kill the patient.
Oh,
so, in fact, whenever I talk to people, I say, look, if you want to do it with chemotherapy, do it with chemotherapy. But if you get better, don't give in to any request to do, you know, heavier chemotherapy or anything like that, because that's going to do you in. So,
the real challenge that we have is convincing physicians to allow anything else other than the chemotherapy itself, because they fear antioxidants and that protection of the cancer cells. So they say don't take any other health products, and they're very entrenched on that. Could a study come out showing that it assists chemotherapy, and that would be a lot of help.
Well, we do have one study of this Indian group that did they didn't use Afamax as such, but they made in the laboratory an extract like Afamax from climatology, and they used it on mice on cisplatinum chemotherapy, and the results were that, you know, cisplatinum didn't do any damage at all on the kidney. So that was a confirmation of what I saw, you know, in my experience in so many years. But I think, I don't remember what, because I was recently, there's an association in Italy which is called of Integrated Oncology. Actually, the president is a doctor friend of mine. We actually published a study together. The latest study we published actually was published a month ago. Was a study done at a palliative center in an oncology center where they only had terminal cancer patients waiting to die, and they used clamine to see if they could improve their, you know, depression, anxiety, and of course, you know, there was a great improvement in depression, anxiety, and also fatigue. And one of the authors of the study is this guy. His name is Massimo Bonucci. He's the president of this Integrated Oncology Association, which I think does something very useful, because they play a very, how can I say, diplomatic game, because they don't attack chemotherapy. So they try to talk to, you know, ordinary oncologists, but they try to introduce, you know, other natural products into the program. And they seems to be, you know, relatively successful. I mean, it's a tough battle, but I don't remember now, but I think there is a test you can do to show if the antioxidant interferes with chemotherapy or not. And I think I may be looking into doing it, so that, you know, you'll have something that say, look, it's very good to prevent, you know, chemotherapy side effects, but does not prevent, you know, chemotherapy efficacy or something like that. Because I know the story. The other thing, you know, I find absolutely ridiculous with oncologists is I don't know if it happened to you, but it happened to me many times whenever I proposed the algae or Afamax or whatever. They came up and said, oh, but this is a source of B12, and you don't give B12 to cancer patients. To which I would answer, so you prohibit all fish, eggs, meat, and of course they wouldn't say anything. They didn't have anything to say. And then I did a search, and I said, well, I want to see where this thing about B12 and cancer comes from, and there's nothing at all. There's only 3 studies showing that actually supplementing B12, which again is probably synthetic B12, only increased the lifespan for a week or something like that. It's just storytelling. Someday an oncologist said, oh, well, B12 participates into the proliferation of red blood cell, so it must also stimulate the proliferation of cancer cell. And he told the other oncologists, and now every oncologist believes that B12 promotes cancer cell proliferation, which is completely ungrounded and completely stupid. But, yeah.
That's the definition of dogma.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing happens with bacteria, friendly bacteria. They all bacteria is bad. Like we've got a friend who's doing stem cell therapy right now, but it's the injected type from a donor, and her body's rejecting that. And I'm saying, why don't you give your body a little help? Because what you're doing is destroying it with the chemotherapy. Give it a little friendly bacteria. Oh no, I can't have bacteria because that just messes up my gut. So like raw goat milk or goat milk yogurt is very friendly to the body and helps the body heal, helps the gut lining heal. But boy, their medical doctors just do not want to hear that. It's frustrating.
Actually, this allows me to link to something else. And I don't know if I talked about this before, but we've done research on the use of Afamax with bacteria. And I have another patent, which is the use of Afamax in growing the bacteria. And the results we got are again mind-blowing, because essentially we moved from bacteria that lived on a normal cell culture 72 hours, they keep growing and then they stop and they stop the growth. And when you add Afamax to the culture, they keep growing for 100 hours, 200 hours, 300 hours. They become technically immortal, because after I was told that after 10 days, if they don't stop growing for 10 days, technically they're defined immortal bacteria. So not only that, but also they tripled their anti-pathogenic activity, their ability to kill E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, Candida, and actually I think the agreement with Dr. Rajem is that we're bringing this probiotic into IGAL and within a year or something. Yeah,
fabulous. It's almost as if the bacteria learned something from the cyanobacteria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they found, there's a kinship there. So.
Yeah, we know you.
I remember a cartoon years and years ago at the National Health Federation. It was a cartoon of a bacteria. And it says, oh, just give us that, no problem. Kill it with this. We'll just transform into something else. So it's changing constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For instance, I was yesterday at the meeting, and there was a guy, I didn't even remember, it was at my previous presentation here, and I had left some bottles of this product, this probiotic, and he told me, where can I get more? My wife, suffers of Crohn and all sorts of intestinal disease, and she took the product and she's great, she was great, so... And it's only the last, I've seen many other stories like that. So I think it'd be a very good addition to IGALEN, because I think, even some of the reaction that people get, because of course when you detox, you also can get some, would be even minimized if you add a powerful probiotic into it, so into the program. So.
And would there be a kind of by stimulating the growth of healthy bacteria, and that may connect to the flesh-eating disease as well, because the bacteria, they have their own war, and if you are stimulating the numbers of healthy bacteria, they will suppress the numbers of bad bacteria. And
That's
so,
actually a very interesting thing, because recently I was told, so what I suppose what you were pointing at, or what I got from it, is that, Climax itself could be very beneficial to help your friendly bacteria. And I think that's actually the case, because I was told by, so whatever we saw in the lab, that, the cyanobacteria helping the growth of bacteria in the lab, in the culture, may even happen in the body. And I think so, because I was told by this researcher we work with at the National Research Center. Last time I spoke to him, he told me that he did some testing on some kind of I don't remember if it's intestinal tissue or whatever, and he found that again, in that case was chlamine, but it helped, which still has some phycocyanin in it. It helped the proliferation of friendly bacteria in the gut, in a live gut of the animal.
So there may be an advantage also for the bacterial or the antibiotic-resistant infections. Because you're feeding the good bacteria. So,
absolutely.
And they produce things that suppress the bad bacteria. So for those infections that are, they have trouble with antibiotics, there may be some overlap there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that, and there's also the activity of PA, on phenylethylamine, on the immune system. Because again, when you start, stimulating the migration of natural killer cells and all the other cells, again, you give the body a big boost to fight, foreign invaders and such as flesh-eating bacteria. So it's again, a 360-degree type of activity, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, immunological, increase the friendly bacteria. So it becomes very, very powerful in that way. And that's why you get, beating the flesh-eating bacteria in 2 weeks, which, it's,
Your booklet, the booklet that you're producing will grow to be the size of the Bible.
Yeah, probably. No, I think it's about 70, 80 pages, so it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It's in the booklet, so.
So have you had experience with interstitial cystitis?
I've had, I don't know, I'm not sure. I've had quite a few good cases of cystitis as such. But
this lady has had just bladder issues with that interstitial cystitis, and nothing seems to work for her nutritionally. And drinking more water doesn't help her. It makes it actually worse. So it's one of those frustrating things that just seems to be up against a hard wall with.
No, I'm pretty sure the Climax would help, and I'm pretty sure that it would help even more if you could add to it the NutriFlora, the Affamax-based bacteria, because I've seen a lot of cases of cystitis together with Affamax and NutriFlora resolving quite a lot of cystitis. In fact, one of the studies we have on mice was an injection of capsaicin in the intestine, in the bladder, and it was completely annulled, completely eliminated any type of inflammation just by taking orally the Affamax. So that's already something that says that it could help also with urinary inflammation in humans. So.
Well, does anybody? I'm going to open this up. Maybe there's a few other questions. Unmute all, and if you got any questions there before we wrap up here.
Yes, this is Bev Ellis. Dr. Stefano, I have a friend who has 22 years ago, she had breast cancer. Now she's dealing with adenosarcoma in her bones. And I'm just wondering how we can help her and how much she should take. And do you have another regime that you add to it?
Again, I'm not putting any limit to Climax because I've been pretty amazed by the results anyway, and certainly, the anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, immunological activity. I would say, to start by, high dosages, like even, 3 times as much as the normal dose, maybe even taking, half a dose 6 times a day, I think would be very, very helpful. Apart from that, I do have a protocol which I may be able to send to David Nelson, we agreed that I would send like 5-10 kits, which would add to Climax this other product, which again, it's called Algozim, which puts together Alphamax with curcumin and high concentration protease. I'm also big on systemic enzymes. I think with these Algozim, we have amazing results on autoimmune diseases, and part of it is, of course, the algae, phycocyanin, but also the proteolytic enzymes, high concentration. They seem to be very, very effective on autoimmune diseases. And then we have, you might be familiar with SCAC. We do a version, a prepared version, which we call Depure SCAC, and adds again some more Alphamax into the mix of the herbs of the SCAC and Nutriflor, because the bacteria in the Nutriflor have also shown to have a very strong anti-cancer effect at the intestinal level, cancer inhibiting anti-proliferation activity themselves. And usually with this protocol, we get very, very good results on all sort of cancers. But again, giving high dosages of, I remember a lady actually who, the first time my first cancer experience was a lady in Italy by herself decided to cure her breast cancer by taking like, I don't remember if 10 or 20 grams a day of algae. Yes. And she had already metastases in her arm. And in 2-3 months, she was free of cancer.
Wow. Excellent.
So, dosing up on Climax may produce a similar result, hopefully, I don't know.
Yes. Thank you.
Have you had experiences with bladder cancer? I know that's not one that's treatable with radiation or chemotherapy, and I've got a dear relative with it.
No, personally, no.
Taking the Climax right now, but still some bleeding going on, and working hard with the Budwig diet along with this. And
Well, I think I'm sending Dr. Nelson 5 or 10 kits where there's also Nutriflor. Anything that has to do with bladder or vaginal infections, I think effective probiotics are a key, because the first place where they migrate from the gut, it's the bladder or the sexual organs, the surrounding. So I've seen that in many of these cases, also using powerful probiotic could help, could give an extra push to the protocol.
Is there any update on the sachets coming forward?
Yeah, actually, one thing we've decided is that we've decided to make the manufacturing of the product in the US because I don't know, there's a lot of problems with bureaucracy. Registering the Italian company with Canada is taking forever. And actually, with the FDA, it wasn't too bad. The thing is registered. The facility is registered with the FDA. But I learned now, I didn't know that when you ship from the US to Canada, I thought there was NAFTA, but NAFTA only applies to products that are manufactured in the US. So even if you ship it from the US, but it's manufactured elsewhere, it goes through customs and they have to pay like $20, $25, $30, of custom duty. So I said, okay, the hell with it, let's do it. I'll send the powder in bulk and we'll have a sachet maker make it here. So we'll be, and we're planning to do that in June. So excellent. I don't know, probably by...
They're very sticky at customs. I have an order. I have the thing here. I placed the order on January 17th and received it on April 3rd.
Yeah,
with the letter from the CBSA saying, well, there's a problem with supplements. And they're crazy.
Are you in Canada?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that once we make the sachet in the United States, all that will be solved. So we've decided to go that route, and we're actually meeting with Rajen in June to go visit a couple of manufacturing plants and start from there. So
how will the sachet work?
Well,
Be like a
that we haven't
tea bag?
decided. Sorry?
It'd be like a tea bag?
No. You just open and,
Oh, I see.
you know,
Pour each
empty the
individual,
powder, but the dose is already made.
pre-measured.
What we're looking at, my idea, but I don't know if it's going to go through. It's to make sachet that contains 3 grams, but with a higher content of the extract, so that it's kind of equivalent to the current 4 grams, but it's 3 grams, and make it like maybe 30 instead of 20 doses, 30 doses. So it'll be a full month of regular dosage, and
That would be good.
possibly we might be able to keep the same price. So that's my goal. Also, because one other thing why we're planning to do it in the US, of course, is because we're cutting costs that way, because shipping only the powder and not the finished product, doesn't have duties, much less shipping costs, and so that would also allow us to increase the dosage and keep in the same price. So that's our goal. Yeah.
Excellent.
And hopefully, by July or at the latest September, it will be available. Okay.
Beautiful. Any other questions? We're right at the top of the hour here, so well, we thank you for your time, especially being so late as it is. But
That's okay. But it's been a lot of fun for me too, and I learned some possible new paths and avenues of activity, which may be interesting to explore. So
that's
great.
wonderful.
Okay.
Good. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone. Join us the next time. We'll post it on Facebook, and have a great weekend.
Thank you very
so
much.
Doctor.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr. Stefano.
Bye.
Okay. Now I got to figure out how to shut this down.